Hey guys, Jack from DMK Designs here. Today I'm going to show you how to install your new graphics kit. Okay, so a few things you're going to need. If you're removing old graphics from your plastics, wax degrease remover is a good way to get the old adhesive off. It's important though, if you do use this, it's going to leave some residue on your plastics. So give it a wipe over with some methylated spirits afterwards. It's important as well, if you do get a brand new plastics kit, you still need to give it a wipe over with some methylated spirits because there'll be some residue on there from the manufacturing process. You're also going to need a roll of chucks wipes or just some clean rags will be fine. You may need a heat gun, especially if you live in a cold climate. It's good to have a squeegee as well. We supply these with their graphics kits, but if you just want to put them on with your hands, that's cool. We use the Chairbiz plastics. If you buy a set of these off us with your graphics kit, we'll fit your graphics for free and just mail your plastics, you bolt them on and you're good to go, so you don't have to worry about having to stick them all on. Righto, so the first thing you need to make sure, most importantly, your hands are clean. You want to make sure that your work area is clean, and you want to make sure that your plastic's clean, obviously. Righto, so we're going to start off with our radiator shroud. We've got our plastic here, we've got our graphic. This is more or less how it'll come to you. It'll be nice and cut out. So because these are brand new plastics, I haven't had anything on them already, we'll just give them a quick wipe over with some metho, and then we'll go from there. So it's important when you're wiping your plastics over with the metho, you want to make sure that you get right into any grooves or lines that are in your plastic. You want to make sure that you go right to the edges, and right to the edges of the bolt holes. You want to make sure all your edges are nice and clean. Okay, so what do you want to do now? You've got your graphic, make sure you've got the right piece. You kind of just want to sit it on there, get a bit of a feel for where everything's going to line up, where all your bolt holes are, that kind of stuff. If there's any edges that wrap over, like this edge along here, that'll kind of wrap under the seat a little bit. Make sure your plastic is all clean and dry. You've got your squeegee. And now what I like to do, some people like to take a section of the paper out of the middle of the graphic. I don't have a problem with that. But what I will normally do, I'll just pull the paper all the way off. Our graphics do have a time-sensitive adhesive, so if you sit it down and it is in the wrong spot, you can lift it back up, and it isn't going to upset the graphic too much. Just make sure if you do lift it up, that you haven't just run over it with a heat gun, because if you run over it with a heat gun and lift it up, you will stretch it. So I'll just try and line up some of the bolt holes. Normally try and start from the middle. Get a bolt hole lined up. Get this top one lined up. Looks pretty good. Make sure that all your corners and everything's going to sit in the right spot. And then just line up this bottom one. Cool, so now you just have your graphic sitting on top of your plastic like that. If you go too nuts from here and just try and start squeegee it all down, you will definitely get bubbles in it. So what I normally do is I'll find a section in the middle that I can get it nice and stuck down. Make sure there's no bubbles in there. And then from here, I'll lift one section up at a time and then squeegee that down, applying heat where I need to. You'll usually find that you'll need to apply heat if you need to bend it around a corner, or if there's any grooves or anything in your plastic that you need to get it to sit down into, then you'll find that you need to use heat more so in those spots. If you are using a heat gun, it's important not to heat them up too much. If you are worried about getting them too hot and burning them, just use a hairdryer. A hairdryer will work just fine as well. So as I'm going through, if I do notice that there's any bubbles anywhere, I'll just lift the graphic up and then make sure I work it all back down and make sure that we don't get any additional bubbles in there. You will find as well that there'll be some spots where the squeegee is a little bit too big and clumsy. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but there's a bit of a groove that goes through the plastic here, and that's a spot where I definitely want to use my hands. You want to make sure that the graphics push all the way down into those spots like that, otherwise they'll get dirt under them, and then your graphics will start lifting. So it's very important to make sure that all your edges are pressed down nice and hard, and any grooves like that, you want to make sure that they're stuck down nice and firm as well. Okay, there we go. We've got our shred sticker on. Like I said, very important just to run around the edges, make sure that all your edges are stuck down nice. And yeah, you'll be all sweet. I know, we'll move on to the next piece. Okay, now we've got our rear fender and our rear fender graphic. Again, we want to make sure that our plastics are nice and clean. So we'll grab our methylated spirits, give it a quick wipe over. And again, you want to make sure that you've got all the grooves nice and clean, all the edges. Make sure that you know where the graphic's going to sit. Like for example, you can see on this that it's going to wrap all the way around. So we want to make sure that we clean on this little underside as well. Okay, now that we've got our plastic nice and clean, we can sit this on there. So we get a bit of an idea of where it's got to sit. It looks pretty good. So again, some people like to cut the center out of the paper. If you do that, I don't recommend doing it with a razor blade, sitting the graphic face down and doing it with a razor blade, because you can cut your graphic. If you are going to do that, I would recommend pulling the backing off, cutting the section out that you want, and then putting the pieces back on that you want to stay on there. Okay, so what I like to do is I'll kind of bend the graphic in half a little bit so it's a bit easier to handle. I'll line up the tip of the graphic where I want it and just stick that down just with my finger. And then just the tip of the graphic is stuck down, and then I can kind of line it up with the ridges at the top, and then I know that it's on straight. Once I get to there, just run my finger straight down the center and get it nice and stuck down. And this is where most people go wrong. I see this all the time, where people will go from there, squeegee it all in, and they'll end up with a big bubble right down the center of their graphic where that groove is, especially on these Honda fenders. So you just want to peel back one side of the graphic at a time to that center point that you've stuck down. And then you want to squeegee it into this groove, and you don't want to go past that groove until everything is stuck down nice into that groove. So hold your graphic up, get your squeegee, and push it down into that groove. So you can see now, I've stuck that graphic from the center down into that groove, and then I can start to move on. If you get too far ahead of yourself and you start sticking it down too far along before you get down in that groove, you either won't get it to sit down, or if you do manage to stretch it in there, it'll pop back up and you'll get dirt under it. Okay, cool. So then you want to do the same thing on the other side. And we get back to that center that you've stuck down nice. And then do the same thing again. Hold the graphic up. And you just want to work your way from the inside, from the center, sorry, into that groove. And then just keep working out from there. Anywhere there's a ridge in the plastic, you want to make sure that you stick down that nice and good before you move on. Just keep working from your center all the way out to the edge. Cool, so there's our rear fender installed. Righto, so the last thing I'm going to show you is our side number plate graphic. This seems to be the one that people are the most scared of, especially on the exhaust side. These new Honda plates aren't too bad. The previous model ones were definitely harder, but we might do a video in the future of how to do those ones specifically, because there is a bit of a trick to it. So again, you just want to make sure they're nice and clean, give them a quick run over with some metho, and you'll be good to go. Okay, so once you've got your plastic nice and clean, you've got it dry. Same again, if you want to cut a section of the paper out of in the center, you can do that. So again, we just line up a bolt hole. There's only one bolt on this one. So I'll line that up. Then I'll line the tip up at the back of the plastic. And then line the front of it up. So again, you want to start in the center and work your way out. I like to try and divide it into two pieces so then I can do the top and the bottom separately. Pull up one section at a time and just squeegee it down. Cool, there you go. You just want to make sure that your edges are stuck all the way down. Run over them a few times, make sure that they don't want to come up or anything like that. Then you'll be good to go. Cool. Well, I hope you guys learned a few things, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the track. Thanks.